I bought the cabin to escape the noise of my life, but when I pulled into the driveway, the silence was already dead. Floodlights cut through the pines, and the front door code had been changed. Inside, the air tasted like sawdust and betrayal. My kitchen was gone, stripped to the subfloor, and standing amidst the debris was my sister, Tessa, spending thousands of dollars she had stolen from me, looking at me like I was the one who should be grateful. The drive from Briar Creek to the outskirts of Pine Hollow usually took me 2 hours, but tonight, the road felt endless. My knuckles were white against the steering wheel of my sedan, the leather cool under my touch, but doing nothing to soothe the tension knotting my shoulders. It was a Friday in late October, the kind of evening where the Colorado sky turns a bruised purple before plunging into absolute blackness. I had just survived the most brutal quarter end in the history of Westbridge Analytics. 3 months of staring at spreadsheets until the numbers swam like oil on water. My eyes burned, my lower back throbbed. All I wanted was the silence of my cabin. I had bought the place 6 months ago. It was a small A-frame tucked into a fold of the mountains, surrounded by lodgepole pines and silence. It was the first thing I had ever owned that was purely mine. Not ours, not the family's, mine. After the divorce, after the quiet humiliation of splitting up coaster sets and arguing over who kept the coffee maker, the cabin was my reclamation. I had spent weekends there just sitting on the floor, drinking tea, imagining a future where I did not have to explain myself to anyone. I turned off the main highway and onto the gravel access road. The tires crunched satisfyingly over the stones. I rolled the window down to let in the smell of pine resin and damp earth, anticipating the moment my headlights would sweep over the front porch. I needed to see the dark windows. I needed to know it was empty and waiting for me. But when I rounded the final bend, the darkness I craved was shattered. Bright, industrial halogen work lights blasted from the front of my cabin, cutting through the trees like an interrogation. My heart hammered a sudden, violent rhythm against my ribs. A large black SUV was parked crookedly in my driveway, blocking the path to the carport. It was a vehicle I did not recognize, coated in a layer of road dust that suggested it had been here for a while. I killed the engine, but the silence I wanted did not come. Instead, the aggressive hum of a generator vibrated in the air, overlaid by the rhythmic thud of a hammer striking wood. I stepped out of the car. The mountain air was crisp, biting at my cheeks, but I barely felt it. I walked toward the front door, my boots slipping slightly on the gravel. Who was in my house? My mind raced through the terrifying list of possibilities. Squatters? Thieves? Teenagers looking for a party spot. I reached the front door and punched my 4-digit code into the smart lock. Error. The keypad flashed red. I stared at it, confused. I typed it again. Slower this time. 1, 9, 8, 4. Error. My breath hitched. Someone had changed the master code. Panic began to rise in my throat, sour and hot. I fumbled in my purse for the physical backup key, my fingers trembling. I had hidden the keyhole behind a decorative plate on the handle, a feature I thought I would never need. I shoved the metal key in and twisted. The deadbolt slid back with a heavy clunk. I threw the door open. "Who is in here?" I shouted, my voice cracking. I was prepared for a confrontation with a stranger. I was prepared to run. I was not prepared for what I saw. The interior of my cabin was unrecognizable. The cozy, slightly dated living room I had fallen in love with was gone. The furniture, my vintage velvet armchair, the sturdy oak coffee table, the rug I had spent weeks choosing, was shoved haphazardly into the corners, covered in plastic drop cloths coated in white dust. But it was the kitchen that made my knees weak. It was gone. The cabinetry was ripped out. The appliances were missing. The countertops, which had been a charming butcher block, were nowhere to be seen. Where my kitchen had been, there was now only a gaping maw of exposed framing and rough plywood subfloor. Wiring dangled from the ceiling like severed nerves. "Lydia?" The voice came from the hallway leading to the bedrooms. I froze. I knew that voice. It was the voice that had narrated my childhood. The voice that could spin a disaster into a funny anecdote before I even realized I was bleeding. Tessa walked into the living room, my older sister. She was wearing yoga pants and a cashmere sweater that cost more than my first car, holding a glass of red wine in one hand and a paint swatch deck in the other. She looked at me not with guilt, but with a bright, welcoming surprise, as if I were the guest who had arrived early for a dinner party. "You are here!" she exclaimed, beaming. "I did not think you were coming up until next weekend." I stood amidst the wreckage of my sanctuary. Unable to form a coherent sentence, I looked at the hole in the floor where my stove used to be. I looked at the pile of debris near the fireplace, shards of my backsplash tile. "Tessa," I whispered, "what did you do?" She waved her hand airily, the wine sloshing dangerously near the rim of the glass. "Do not look at it yet. It is the ugly phase. You have to visualize the finish line. Lid. It is going to be spectacular. Open concept. Quartz waterfall island. Very mountain modern." "You tore out my kitchen," I said, my voice rising. "How did you get in here?" "I knew the backup code," she said, taking a sip of wine. "Mom put it in her contacts years ago. Or maybe Dad did? I do not remember. Anyway, I moved in temporarily, just for a bit. My lease in the city was up, and things were getting stagnant. You know? I needed a project. And frankly, this place needed help. It was dark, depressing." "I liked it," I said. "It is my house. Tessa, mine. You cannot just move in and demolish it." "I am doing this for you," she said, her tone shifting to that pitying cadence she used when I was being unreasonable. "You are so busy with work, Lid. You never have time to make things nice for yourself." I thought, why not surprise her? Why not make the place actually worth something? A man walked in from the back deck, wiping sawdust from his hands onto his jeans. He was tall, with the kind of practiced ruggedness that belonged on a billboard for pickup trucks. He wore a hat that said, "Summit Ridge Renovations." "Hey, Tess," he said, ignoring me. "We need to make a call on the backsplash tile by Monday if we want to stay on the timeline." "Eli, this is my sister, Lydia," Tessa said, gesturing to me as if I were a piece of furniture she had just introduced to the room. "Lydia, this is Eli Granger. He is a genius. He did the remodel on the Carver place down in the valley." Eli Granger looked me up and down, his eyes flat and assessing. He offered a hand that felt like sandpaper. "Nice to meet you. You have got a great property here. Good bones. We are going to maximize the square footage." "Stop," I said. I did not shake his hand. "Stop everything. I did not hire you. I did not authorize this." Eli's smile did not falter, but it grew tighter. He pulled a smartphone from his back pocket and tapped the screen. "Actually, Ms. Watson, we have a signed contract. Digital authorization received 2 weeks ago. Permit applications are in. Materials ordered, and 50% delivered." He turned the screen toward me. I stared at a PDF document. At the bottom, in a generic cursive font generated by a computer, was the name Lydia Watson. "That is not my signature," I said, looking from him to Tessa. "I never saw this. I never signed this." "I handled the admin for you," Tessa said quickly, stepping between me and Eli. "I knew you were drowning in that audit at Westbridge. You said you wanted to upgrade the place eventually. I just expedited the timeline." "I never said that," I shouted. The sound echoed painfully in the hollowed-out room. "I said I liked the cabin the way it was. Tessa, this is forgery. You forged my signature." "Oh, stop using legal words," Tessa snapped, her veneer of cheerfulness cracking. "It is a family project. Since when do we need lawyers for family? I am increasing your equity. Lydia, you should be thanking me. Do you know how much value a chef's kitchen adds?" "I am not selling it," I said. Tessa blinked. Her eyes darted to Eli, then back to me. It was a micro-expression, a flicker of panic that she covered instantly with a scoff. "Well, not yet, obviously. But you have to think about the market. The new buyers' tastes are very specific. They want sleek. They want modern. They do not want knotty pine and laminate counters. The phrase hung in the air. The new buyer's tastes. I never listed this cabin, I said slowly. Why are you talking about buyers? I am speaking hypothetically, Tessa said. Too fast. She took a large gulp of wine. Just generally speaking, about asset appreciation. Eli, I said, turning to the contractor. Get out. He chuckled, a low, patronizing sound. Ms. Watson, it is late. We are in the middle of a demo. I cannot just leave the site unsecured. Get out. My voice was shaking, but I held his gaze. Pack your tools. Leave my property. If you hammer one more nail, I am calling the sheriff. Eli looked at Tessa. She gave him a sharp, almost imperceptible nod. Fine, Eli said, raising his hands in mock surrender. We will pick this up Monday, but I am telling you, delays cost money, and the clock is ticking on the draw schedule. He whistled for his crew. Two younger guys I hadn't even seen yet who emerged from the bathroom carrying armfuls of my towels used as rags. They filed out the front door, leaving a trail of dust in their wake. When the heavy front door finally clicked shut, the silence that followed was suffocating. Tessa stood by the fireplace, tracing the edge of a mantle that she probably planned to rip out next. You are so dramatic, she said quietly. Always the victim. I try to do something nice, something big, and you treat me like a criminal. You destroyed my house, I said. I felt sick, physically ill. Where are you sleeping? The guest room is full of boxes, she said. I set up a bed in the master. My bedroom. She was sleeping in my bed. I need to use the bathroom, I said. I walked past her, keeping as much distance as the narrow hallway allowed. I locked the bathroom door behind me and turned on the tap to mask the sound of my breathing. I stared at myself in the mirror. I looked gray. My eyes were wide and frantic. I splashed cold water on my face, trying to scrub away the feeling of unreality. The draw schedule. Eli had said, delays cost money. I pulled my phone from my pocket. My hands were trembling so badly I dropped it into the dry sink before retrieving it. I opened my banking app. I checked my primary checking account. Normal. I checked my savings. Normal. Then I scrolled down to the bottom of the list. To an account I kept meaning to close, Watson Family Checking. It was a relic from 5 years ago. A joint account my father had set up when Mom got sick, intended for shared expenses and emergencies. I had forgotten my debit card, for it was even active. I had certainly forgotten that it was linked as an overdraft protection source for my main accounts. I tapped the balance. My stomach dropped so hard, I had to grip the edge of the vanity to keep from falling. Minus $28,000. The transaction history was a hemorrhage of red text. Summit Ridge Renovations, $12,000. High Country Lumber, $4,500. Pine Hollow Appliance Center, $8,000. Cash. Withdrawal, $500. Cash withdrawal, $500. The dates went back 3 weeks. She had been draining me while I was sitting in conference rooms in Briar Creek, worrying about quarterly projections. She had emptied the account of the small inheritance Mom left us, plus $5,000 of my own savings I had transferred there for tax season, and she was still spending. I sat on the closed toilet lid and put my head between my knees. I could not breathe. It wasn't just the money. It was the violation. It was the fact that she knew I wouldn't check. She knew I was overwhelmed at work. She had weaponized my exhaustion. I stayed in the bathroom for 20 minutes. When I finally came out, Tessa was in the kitchen, or the shell of the kitchen, humming to herself as she swept sawdust into a pile. I am going to sleep, I said. My voice sounded dead. Oh, good, she said. You will feel better in the morning. We can look at tile samples over coffee. I found this gorgeous slate. I am not sleeping here, I said. She paused, the broom mid-stroke. Don't be silly. The master bed is huge. We can share, like when we were kids. The thought of lying next to her, in the house she was dismantling with my money, made bile rise in my throat. No, I said. I grabbed my bag and walked out the front door. The cold air hit me like a slap. I marched to my car, unlocked it, and climbed into the back seat. I had a wool blanket in the trunk and a travel pillow. It was ridiculous. I was a 33-year-old woman, a senior financial analyst, sleeping in a Honda Accord in her own driveway because her sister had hijacked her life. But I couldn't be in there with her. I couldn't listen to her rewrite history. I wrapped myself in the blanket, shivering until my body heat began to trap itself in the wool. The cabin windows glowed warm and inviting, a cruel trick of the light, through the thin glass of the car window and the silent mountain air. Sound carried strangely well. I saw Tessa's shadow move across the living room window. She was pacing. She had the phone pressed to her ear. I cracked my car window just an inch. "She is here," Tessa's voice drifted out, sounding annoyed but not panicked. "No, she's freaking out, obviously, but I can manage her. She is soft. You know that. She yells, but she caves." Pause. "Don't worry about the money. I told you. I have access. We just need to get the inspection passed so we can list it. Yes. It is basically handled. Just keep the investors happy, okay? I need this. Vaughn. I need this to work." Vaughn? I didn't know a Vaughn. "It is basically handled," she repeated, laughing a low, throaty laugh that sent a chill down my spine. She hung up and the lights in the living room went out. I lay in the dark, staring at the ceiling of my car. The trees whispered above me in the wind. She is soft. She caves. Is that what they thought of me? Cautious. Reliable Lydia? The one who paid the bills and fixed the messes and never made a fuss? I closed my eyes, but I didn't sleep. I formulated. The sun came up over the ridge in a wash of pale gold, illuminating the frost on my windshield. My neck was stiff, and my mouth tasted like stale adrenaline. I watched the cabin for a long time. There was no movement. Tessa was likely sleeping in. Warm in my bed, dreaming of quartz countertops and investor checks. I started the car quietly and backed down the driveway. I needed coffee. I needed Wi-Fi, and I needed to be away from her before I started screaming. I drove into Pine Hollow. It was a tourist town that had managed to keep some of its grit. The main street was lined with gear shops, real estate offices, and a few cafes. I parked in front of the Roasted Bean, a place with mismatched furniture and strong coffee. I ordered a large black coffee and found a table in the corner. I opened my laptop, tethering it to the cafe's Wi-Fi. Rough night? I looked up. The barista was wiping down the table next to me. Her name tag said June. She was around my age, with gray streaks in her messy bun and eyes that looked like they didn't miss much. "That obvious?" I asked. Touching my hair, I knew I looked a mess. "You have got dust on your jacket," she said, nodding at my shoulder. "Drywall dust. Distinctive smell." I brushed at my sleeve. "Yeah, remodel. Unexpected remodel." June paused. She leaned the rag against the table. "You bought the A-frame up on Ridge Road, right? The Watson place now?" "Yes," I said, surprised. "How did you know?" "Small town," she said dryly. "And I saw Eli Granger's truck heading up there every day for the past 3 weeks. Summit Ridge Renovations. He is—" "My sister hired him," I said carefully. "I am trying to figure out what is going on." June looked around the shop to make sure no one was listening. She lowered her voice. "Look, it is not my business, but you seem decent, and you look like you slept in your car. So I will just say this. You are not the first person Eli has done rush work for." My fingers froze on the keyboard. "What does that mean?" "It means he likes to move fast," June said. "He likes clients who don't ask about permits. He likes cash. And usually, a few months later, the pipes leak or the wiring sparks. Just check his work, carefully." She walked back behind the counter before I could ask more. I sat there, the steam from the coffee warming my face. Check his work. I pulled out my phone. I needed an ally. I needed someone who knew me, who knew Tessa, who would tell me I wasn't crazy. I dialed my father's number. Ray Watson answered on the second ring. Lydia? Everything okay? Tessa said you arrived last night. Dad, I said, feeling the prickle of tears I hated. She destroyed the cabin. She ripped out the kitchen. She stole $28,000 from the family account. You have to tell her to stop. You have to tell her to leave. There was a silence on the line. I expected outrage. I expected him to ask for details. Instead, he sighed, a heavy, disappointed sigh. Lydia, honey, don't be dramatic. Stole is a very harsh word. She spent it without asking me, on a house she doesn't own. She told me about the plan, Ray said. She wants to help you flip it. It is an investment for the family. Lydia, Tessa is trying to get back on her feet. She has a vision. You know how she is. She sees the big picture. You get so bogged down in the details. The details? I almost laughed. The detail is that she forged my signature on a contract. Dad, that is a felony. Now, don't go throwing words like that around. His voice hardened. She is your sister. She is trying to do something good for you, to build some wealth for all of us. Why do you always have to make things difficult? Why can't you just support her for once? The words hit me like a physical blow. Make things difficult. I looked out the window of the coffee shop. A truck rumbled past. She told you she is doing this for me? I asked quietly. Of course, Ray said. She said you were too stressed to manage the renovation, so she stepped up. She is worried about you. Lyd, she says you are isolating yourself. I closed my eyes. Tessa had beaten me to him. She had planted the narrative seeds weeks ago. Lydia is stressed. Lydia is unstable. I am the hero sister saving the day. I see, I said. My voice was calm now, cold. Okay, Dad. Thanks for explaining. Just talk to her, he said, sounding relieved. Work it out. Be a family. Goodbye, Dad. I hung up. I set the phone on the table. My coffee was getting cold. I sat there for 10 minutes, staring at the steam dying away. I thought about the Watson family checking account. I thought about the subfloor where my kitchen used to be. I thought about the new buyers Tessa had mentioned. Ray Watson wasn't going to save me. He was charmed by Tessa's chaos, addicted to her high-stakes energy because it felt like life. Whereas my stability felt like background noise, I was alone. But being alone meant I didn't have to ask permission. I opened a new browser tab on my laptop. I typed in Pine Hollow Real Estate Attorney. A list of names popped up. I scrolled past the ones with flashy ads and 5-star ratings that looked fake. I found a small firm, Klein Alder Law. The website was dated, but the bio for Mara Klein said she specialized in property disputes and fraud. I opened my banking portal again. I navigated to the shared account. I clicked on Services, Freeze Account. The prompt asked, "Are you sure? This will decline all incoming transactions and freeze connected cards." I clicked yes. Next, I went to my credit report. I froze my credit at all 3 bureaus. Then, I opened a blank document. I typed the header, Timeline of Events, Summit Ridge Renovations / Tessa Watson. I began to type. I typed out the date of purchase, the date I arrived, the state of the house, the conversation with Eli, the conversation with Dad. I wasn't going to scream. I wasn't going to plead with Tessa to see reason, because she wasn't operating on reason. She was operating on desperation and manipulation. I was going to document. I was going to build a wall of paper so high and so thick that she couldn't charm her way over it. I took a sip of the cold coffee. It was bitter. But it woke me up. The sister who caves was gone. The analyst was here, and I was going to audit the hell out of this mess. The office of Klein and Alder Law sat between a bakery and a tax preparer's storefront on the north end of Pine Hollow. It was not the kind of glass-walled, high-rise firm I was used to in the city, where the air conditioning always hummed at a precise 68 degrees and the receptionists wore headsets. This place smelled of old paper, lemon furniture polish, and stale coffee. The carpet was a faded navy blue that had seen better decades. and the waiting room chairs were upholstered in a scratchy tweed that caught on my jeans. I sat with my hands clasped tightly in my lap, my knuckles white. I had been waiting for 15 minutes. Every time the door chimed, I jumped, half expecting Tessa to burst in, breathless and charming, ready to explain to the receptionist why I was overreacting. But Tessa was back at the cabin, presumably supervising the destruction of my home, and I was here, about to turn my family drama into a legal matter. A heavy oak door opened, and a woman stepped out. She looked to be in her 60s, wearing a sharp gray blazer over a black turtleneck. Her hair was cut in a severe, practical bob, and she wore glasses on a chain around her neck. "Lydia Watson?" she asked. Her voice was like the room, dry and no nonsense. I stood up. "Yes, that is me. I am Mara Klein. Come on back." Her office was a labyrinth of file boxes and stacked legal pads. There was a window behind her desk that looked out onto an alleyway, letting in a gray, diffuse light. She sat down and motioned for me to do the same. She did not offer me water. She did not ask how my drive was. She simply opened a fresh notepad and clicked a pen. "Tell me the facts," she said. "Not the feelings, just the facts." I took a breath. It was harder than I thought to separate the two. "I own a cabin on Ridge Road. I bought it 6 months ago in my name only. I arrived last night to find my sister, Tessa Watson, living there without my permission. She has hired a contractor named Eli Granger from Summit Ridge Renovations. They have demolished the kitchen and removed the flooring. Tessa claimed I signed a digital contract, which I did not. She has also accessed a joint family bank account I forgot was linked to my overdraft and has spent approximately $28,000 on materials and labor." Mara wrote steadily, her pen scratching against the paper. She did not look up when I mentioned the money, but her eyebrows twitched slightly when I mentioned the digital contract. "Do you have a copy of this contract?" she asked. The contractor showed it to me on his phone. I said, "I did not get a physical copy, but the signature was a paste job. It looked like a stamp." "And have you asked her to leave?" "Yes. I told her to stop work and get out." She refused. She claims she is increasing the value of the property for a future sale I never authorized. Mara stopped writing. She took off her glasses and let them hang by the chain. She looked at me with eyes that were intelligent and weary. "Lydia, you are in a precarious position," she said. "How?" I asked, feeling a spike of indignation. "It is my house, because she is family, and because she has established residency, however informal." Mara said, "If she has been there long enough to receive mail, or if she can prove she has been contributing to the property, even if you view it as destruction, police are often reluctant to remove someone without a court order. They view it as a civil dispute, domestic. So I can do nothing?" I asked. My voice sounded thin in the cluttered room. "No, you can do plenty," Mara said. "But you have to be cold about it. You cannot have a screaming match in the driveway. That serves her. Chaos serves people who operate like this. You need to be boring, bureaucratic, and relentless." She opened a drawer and pulled out a template form. "First, we issue a formal notice against trespass," she said. "It revokes any implied license she thinks she has to be on the property. We give her a deadline. 48 hours is standard for a guest who has overstayed. But given the damage, we demand immediate vacation of the premises. Second, you need to preserve evidence. Take photos of everything: the damage, the contractor's equipment, the state of the rooms. Third, we send a formal demand to this Eli Granger for a copy of the authorization he claims to have. If he cannot produce a legitimate contract, he is working on your property illegally." She handed me the paper. "Serve her this," Mara said. "Do not throw it at her. Do not cry when you hand it to her. Just hand it to her. Record the interaction if you can do so safely, or at least write down exactly what is said immediately after." I looked at the document. It was full of legal language, pursuant to, hereby notified, revocation of access. It felt like a weapon. It felt like I was aiming a gun at my sister. "What if she refuses?" I asked. "Then we file for an ejectment action and a restraining order regarding the property damage." Mara said, We will also contact the bank to formally contest the charges as fraudulent. Although that gets messy with a joint account, you need to close that channel immediately." She leaned forward. "Lydia, listen to me. People who remodel houses they do not own using money that is not theirs rely on social pressure to keep going. They rely on you not wanting to make a scene. They rely on the fact that you are embarrassed to call the police on your sister. You have to decide right now if you are willing to be the bad guy in her story. Because if you are not, she will bankrupt you. I thought of the hole where my kitchen used to be. I thought of Tessa's laugh on the phone. She is soft. She caves. I am willing." I said, "The drive back up the mountain felt different. I wasn't driving blindly into a sanctuary anymore. I was driving into a crime scene. The notice against trespass sat on the passenger seat beside me. I had stopped at a copy shop in town and printed 3 copies, along with a time-stamped log I had started in a notebook. When I pulled into the driveway, the work trucks were gone. It was Saturday, and apparently, even Eli Granger took the weekend off. Or perhaps he was waiting for the check to clear. Tessa's SUV was still there, parked aggressively close to the front steps. I grabbed the papers and got out of the car. The air was thinner up here, sharp with the scent of pine and coming snow. I walked up the steps, my boots heavy on the wood. The front door was unlocked. I pushed it open. Tessa was sitting on a cooler in the middle of the living room, surrounded by the chaos she had created. She was wearing a thick cable-knit sweater and leggings. Her hair pulled back in a loose, elegant ponytail. She held a mug of tea in both hands, looking small and fragile against the backdrop of torn drywall and exposed studs. She looked up as I entered. Her eyes were red-rimmed. She didn't smile. She didn't launch into a sales pitch about the renovation. She just looked at me with a profound, crushing sadness. "You came back," she said softly. "I thought you had abandoned me." The pivot was so fast, so seamless. I almost stumbled physically. Last night she had been manic, confident, laughing on the phone. Now she was the wounded bird. "I am not abandoning you." "Tessa," I said, keeping my voice level, "I am reclaiming my house." She sighed. A shuddering sound. She set the tea down on the floor. "I know you are angry," she said. "You have every right to be. I made a mess. I know that. I got excited. I wanted to do something good. I wanted to prove I could handle something big." She stood up and walked toward me. Her arms wrapped around herself. "Mom used to say I had vision, remember?" she said. "She used to say you were the anchor and I was the sail. But lately I feel like I am just drifting. I thought if I could fix this place up, if I could make it beautiful for you, it would mean I was on the right track, that I wasn't just wasting my potential. I felt the tug in my chest, the familiar, ancient hook. This was the dynamic, Tessa the dreamer, the one who felt things too deeply, the one who needed saving, Lydia the boring one, the one who was strong enough to absorb the impact. She stopped 2 feet away from me. "I am sorry, Lyd," she whispered. "I really am. I just wanted us to have something special." "Why do you always have to push me away? Why is your first instinct always to run to Dad or run to a lawyer? Why can't we just talk?" My grip tightened on the papers. It was a masterpiece of emotional architecture. She had framed her felony as an act of love and my boundaries as a character flaw. "I did not run," I said. "I slept in my car." "I know," she said, tears spilling over. "And that breaks my heart. You are so rigid. Lydia, you punish yourself. You always have. You deny yourself joy because you are terrified of losing control. That is why you are alone. That is why your marriage ended." The words landed like darts. Precision strikes. I took a step back. Mara's voice rang in my head. "Do not argue inside the cabin. I am not doing this." I said. I held out the envelope. "This is a formal notice against trespass." I said. My voice was shaking, but the words were clear. "It states that you do not have permission to be here. It states that all work must stop immediately. And it states that you need to vacate the premises by Monday morning at 8 o'clock. Tessa stared at the envelope. She didn't take it. Her face went slack, the sadness vanishing, replaced by a cold, sharp shock. "You are serving me?" she asked. I placed the envelope on a stack of unopened drywall sheets near the door. "I am protecting myself," I said. I turned around and walked out the door. "Lydia!" she screamed after me. "Lydia, don't you walk away from me. You are ruining everything." I kept walking. I went down the steps, past her SUV, and stood by my car. My heart was hammering so hard I could feel it in my throat. I needed to document this. I needed to anchor the truth before her words washed it away. I pulled out my phone and opened the voice memo app. I turned my back to the house, staring out at the line of trees. I pressed record. "My name is Lydia Watson." I said into the phone, "Today is Saturday, October 28th. I have just served Tessa Watson with a notice against trespass. I have not given permission for her to reside here. I have not authorized any renovations. I have not authorized any spending from the Watson family checking account. The current state of the cabin is uninhabitable due to unauthorized demolition. I am requesting she leave by Monday morning." I stopped the recording. I played it back. My voice sounded steady. Good. I got into my car. I wasn't leaving, but I wasn't going back inside. I drove to the end of the driveway and parked so I could see the exit. I was the sentry now. I spent the next hour in the car, using my phone as a mobile command center. The signal was spotty, but I managed to log into my work email. I needed a distraction, something logical to focus on. I opened the expense portal for Westbridge Analytics. I had a few approvals pending for my team. As I scrolled through the vendor list, something caught my eye. It was a familiar logo in the sidebar, a list of preferred vendor partners for employee discounts, and there, 3 spots down, was a name that made my blood run cold. Summit Ridge Services. I clicked on it. It redirected to a generic landing page offering corporate relocation and renovation consulting. The address was a P.O. box in Pine Hollow. The contact email was admin@summitridge.com. It was the same company, or a shell of it, Eli Granger's company. My mind raced. Why would a small-time mountain contractor be in the vendor network of a mid-sized finance firm in Briar Creek? Vendor onboarding at Westbridge was rigorous. You needed insurance, background checks, tax ID verification. I thought about the charge on the family account. Summit Ridge Renovations. I pulled up the transaction details on my banking app again. I expanded the merchant info. The merchant category code wasn't construction, it was business services, consulting. That was odd. A contractor buying lumber should show up as construction or retail. Consulting was a catch-all category, often used for professional services. I dialed the internal fraud hotline for Westbridge. It was a Saturday, so I expected a voicemail. But to my surprise, a human answered. "Westbridge Integrity Line. This is Marcus. Hi, this is Lydia Watson, Senior Analyst. ID number 4922. I said, "I am calling to report a potential vendor anomaly." "Go ahead." "Lydia, I am looking at a vendor in our network. Summit Ridge Services. I have reason to believe they are operating under a different entity name locally for construction work that may not be licensed. I also noticed a personal charge from this entity on my private bank account that was categorized as consulting, which matches their vendor profile. But the work being done is physical demolition." Marcus typed something in the background. "Okay, I see them. They were onboarded about 6 months ago. Do you have a specific concern about a corporate transaction?" "Not yet," I said, "but the overlap is suspicious. The entity doing business here in Pine Hollow seems irregular, and the fact that they are in our system gave them a layer of legitimacy I want to flag." "Noted," Marcus said. "I will flag it for a review on Monday. Thanks for the heads up." "Lydia," I hung up. The unease in my stomach was growing. It wasn't just a bad contractor. It felt systemic. Tessa had found Eli, or Eli had found Tessa, and somehow, my employer was tangentially involved. The circle was too tight. A dusty white pickup truck crunched up the driveway around 2 in the afternoon. It had Pine Hollow County Inspections stenciled on the door. I got out of my car to meet him. Ross Calder looked exactly like I hoped a building inspector would. Tired, grumpy, and wearing a utility vest with more pockets than seemed necessary. He carried a clipboard and a heavy-duty flashlight. "Ms. Watson?" he asked, squinting at me. "You are the one who called about the safety check?" "Yes," I said. "Thank you for coming on a weekend. I charge double for Saturdays," he grunted. "And cash only for the rush fee." "Fine," I said. "I just need to know if the house is going to fall down." He looked past me at the cabin. Tessa was nowhere to be seen, but the front door was still unlocked. "Let us take a look," Ross said. We walked inside. The living room was empty. Tessa had retreated to the bedroom, likely plotting her next move. Ross ignored the furniture and walked straight to the demolished kitchen. He clicked on his flashlight, the beam cutting through the gloom. He shined the light on the ceiling joists where the cabinetry had been ripped out. He traced the wiring that dangled like spaghetti. He knelt down and looked at the subfloor. "Jesus," he muttered. "What?" I asked. He stood up and pointed his light at a thick wooden beam that ran across the top of the room. It was notched where someone had aggressively sawed away drywall. "See that cut?" Ross asked. "That is a load-bearing header. Looks like they took a reciprocating saw to it to make room for, I don't know, a vent hood maybe? But they cut into the structural meat. That beam is holding up your roof. Ms. Watson, with a heavy snow load, that roof is going to sag. Maybe collapse." My hand flew to my mouth. "Collapse? And look here," he said, kicking a wire. "This is live. They didn't cap the ends, and this isn't even the right gauge wire for a kitchen circuit. This is cheap stuff. Fire hazard waiting to happen." He walked around the perimeter, shaking his head. "Who is the contractor?" he asked. "Eli Granger," I said. "Summit Ridge Renovations." Ross froze. He turned to look at me, his face unreadable in the shadows. "Eli, huh?" he said. "You know him?" "I know him," Ross said grimly. He made a mark on his clipboard. "Ms. Watson, you have a problem. This worksite is in active danger. I am red tagging it. That means no one can be in here until the structural issues are fixed and the electrical is brought up to code. It is illegal to occupy this dwelling as of right now." He ripped a bright orange sticker off his clipboard pad. "Wait," I said. "Before you post that, can you tell me something about the permits?" He said he had them. Ross flipped through his papers. I checked the system before I came out. "There is a permit application filed." "Yeah, but the permit number he put on the application? It starts with a PHC. Is that wrong?" "Pine Hollow County permits start with BLD." Ross said, "PHC is the format for Park Hill County, which is 3 hours south of here." He didn't just file the wrong paperwork. He copy-pasted a number from a different job in a different county. It is a fake. Ms. Watson, he is not licensed to pull permits here. The front door opened, and Eli Granger walked in. He must have been parked down the road or come back while I was distracted. He froze when he saw Ross. "Ross," Eli said, his voice tight. "Didn't know you were working weekends. I am when the homeowner calls me about a butchered header," Ross said, shining the light right in Eli's face. Eli put a hand up to shield his eyes. "Look, we are in the middle of rough-in. It looks worse than it is. We are bracing that beam on Monday. You are not doing anything on Monday," I said, stepping forward. "Ross says the permit number is fake." "Eli, you are fired." Eli's demeanor shifted instantly. The rugged, helpful contractor vanished. In his place was a man with cold, shark-like eyes. He dropped his hand and stepped closer to me, ignoring Ross. "You cannot fire me." "Lydia," he said, "we have a contract, and I have got $12,000 in labor already sunk into this. You try to kick me off, and I file a mechanic's lien on this property so fast your head will spin. You won't be able to sell it, refinance it, or do anything with it until I get paid." "It is not a valid contract," I said. "My sister forged it." "That is a domestic dispute," Eli sneered. "Not my problem, as far as the law sees it. An agent of the homeowner authorized the work. I have got emails. I have got texts. You want to play hardball? I will lock this title up for years." He was counting on my fear. He was counting on the fact that legal battles were expensive and liens were terrifying to people who cared about credit scores. But he didn't know I spent my days analyzing risk for a living. If you file a lien based on a contract with a forged signature and a fraudulent permit number, I said, my voice surprisingly steady, my lawyer will not just vacate the lien. She will file a complaint with the state licensing board and the attorney general for contractor fraud. And since Ross here is a witness to the code violations, you will lose your bond. Eli stared at me. His jaw worked. He looked at Ross, who crossed his arms and nodded once. You are making a mistake, Eli spat. He turned and stormed out. I stood there, shaking. The adrenaline was crashing. Ross posted the orange unsafe to occupy sticker on the front window. You need to get everyone out, Ross said. Tonight, I am serious. If that roof goes, I don't want to be the one filling out the report. I nodded. Thank you. Ross. He tipped his hat and left. I was alone in the living room again. The silence was heavy. I looked at the orange sticker. It was real. The house was broken. I took out my phone. I had one more lever to pull, the nuclear option. I opened the banking app. I had frozen the account earlier, but I hadn't canceled the card itself yet, just paused it. Now, I called the bank's fraud department directly. Yes, I want to report the card as stolen, I said, and I want to flag all transactions from Summit Ridge Renovations as unauthorized. Yes, immediately. I hung up. 30 seconds later, the bedroom door flew open. Tessa stormed out. She wasn't sad anymore. She wasn't charming. She was frantic. She held her phone in her hand like it was a grenade. What did you do? She screamed. I looked at her calmly. I canceled the card. Tessa, you cannot do that, she yelled, closing the distance between us. Her face was pale, her eyes wide with a terror I had never seen in her before. You have to unfreeze it, right now. You have to. Why? I asked. The renovation is over. Eli is gone. The house is condemned. Why do you need the card? She stopped, breathing hard. Her hands were shaking violently. I have a payment scheduled, she stammered. For Monday. It is automatic. If it bounces, Lydia, if it bounces, I am in trouble. What kind of payment? I asked. To who? It doesn't matter, she shrieked. Just turn it back on. I will pay you back, I swear. I just need to cover this one thing. It is $5,000. Please, $5,000? For what? She wouldn't answer. She just paced in a tight circle, pulling at her hair. I promised, she muttered to herself. I promised it would clear by Monday. He said Monday was the deadline. Who is he? I asked. Is it Eli? No, she yelled. It is not Eli. You don't understand anything. You just ruined everything. She grabbed a vase from the side table, one of the few things of mine left intact, and hurled it at the wall. It shattered into 1,000 pieces. I flinched, but I didn't move. Get out, I said. The inspector red-tagged the house. It is not safe. You have to leave. Fine, she screamed. I am leaving. I hate this place anyway. I hate you. You are just jealous because I actually try to do things with my life while you just sit in your cubicle and rot. She ran into the bedroom. I heard the sound of a zipper. Things being thrown into a bag. Minutes later, she emerged with her duffel bag. She didn't look at me. She stormed out the front door, slamming it so hard the remaining glass in the panes rattled. I watched her SUV tear out of the driveway, gravel spraying everywhere. She was gone. I was alone in the wreckage. I sank down onto the dusty floor. I felt hollowed out. My sister had just told me she hated me. She had destroyed my home, and she was terrified of someone expecting $5,000 on Monday. I looked around the room. The orange sticker glowed in the fading light. I stood up to clean the shards of the vase. I needed to do something with my hands. I walked over to where the kitchen cabinets used to be to find a trash bag. As I bent down near the exposed framing of the lower cabinets, something caught my eye. Taped to the underside of a 2x4 stud, hidden where the toe kick of the old cabinet would have been, was a folded piece of paper. It looked old. The tape was yellowed. I frowned. The cabinets were original to the house, from the 80s, but we had only bought the place 6 months ago. Tessa hadn't been here then. I peeled the tape off carefully. I unfolded the paper. I recognized the handwriting instantly. It was a spiky, rushed cursive that I had seen on grocery lists and birthday cards for 30 years. It was my mother's handwriting. My breath caught in my throat. Mom had been dead for 2 years. She had never been to this cabin. I read the note. Lydia, if you are reading this, it means Tessa is scared. She probably did something big. Something that looks like help, but feels like a robbery. She probably told you it was for the family. My hands started to shake. How? How was this here? Then I remembered. Tessa had brought boxes of Mom's old things up here to sort through. She must have hidden this. Or maybe she didn't know it was here? No, it was taped to the frame. I read on. I know you want to fix it. I know you want to write a check to make the problem go away so she will stop looking at you like a frightened animal. Don't do it. I did it for years. I paid off the credit cards, the failed business loans, the investments. It never stopped. It just got bigger. Don't give her cash. Give her choices. If you save her from the consequences, you are not being a good sister. You are being an accomplice. I love you both. But you have to be the strong one now, even if she hates you for it. Mom. I stared at the paper. The date at the bottom was 3 years ago. She must have written it before she died, anticipating a future she wouldn't see. She knew. She knew Tessa would spiral. She knew I would try to catch her. She had written this note to me, from the past, to stop me from making the mistake she had made 1,000 times. But how did it get here? I looked at the stud again. The tape was fresh. Tessa didn't tape this here. Tessa would have burned this. I looked closer at the 2x4. There was a faint pencil mark next to the tape. R. Ray Watson. Dad. Dad had been up here. He had helped Tessa move in. He must have found the note among Mom's papers, or maybe Mom gave it to him before she passed, and he had hidden it here for me to find? No, that didn't make sense. Dad was defending Tessa. Unless Dad was playing both sides, unless he was too weak to tell Tessa no himself. So he planted the bomb for me to find, forcing me to be the executioner. Give her choices. I folded the note and put it in my pocket. Tessa wasn't just impulsive. She was in debt. She was terrified. And she had a deadline. Monday. I walked to the window and looked out at the darkening woods. The wind was picking up, rattling the loose siding. I wasn't going to fix this with a check. Mom was right. But if I didn't find out who Tessa owed money to, and why they scared her so much, the choice I gave her might not be enough to save her life. It was time to stop being the victim. It was time to start hunting. The Sunday morning sun did not feel like a fresh start. It felt like an interrogation light, exposing the dust on my dashboard and the dark circles under my eyes. I had spent the night in a motel room that smelled of lemon cleaner and stale cigarettes. My laptop glowing on the small round table until 3 a.m. I had the email Eli Granger had shown me, or rather, a forwarded screenshot of it that I had managed to extract from his foreman before he left the site yesterday. It was the proof of my authorization. I zoomed in on the PDF. The document itself was a generic template, likely downloaded from a free legal advice website. Authorization for property improvement. The clauses were vague, stripping me of liability protection and granting the contractor broad discretion over material selection, but it was the signature that made my stomach turn. It was my name, Lydia Watson, in a looped, slightly heavy-handed cursive. It looked familiar, too familiar. I opened a folder on my laptop labeled Family Scans. I scrolled back 3 years to a digital copy of a birthday card I had sent my mother. There, signed at the bottom in blue ink, Love, Lydia Watson. I toggled back and forth. The L loop was identical, the way the T crossed slightly too high. Tessa hadn't just forged my signature. She had lifted it from a card I had written to our dying mother. She had scanned it, cropped it, and pasted it onto a contract to gut my house. I called Mara Klein. It was Sunday, but she had given me her cell number. It is a cut-and-paste job, I told her, my voice flat. From an old birthday card. It is crude, Mara's voice crackled over the speaker. In a court of law, a forensic document examiner would tear it apart in 10 minutes. The pixelation on the signature block doesn't match the resolution of the text. It is a fraud, Lydia, a bad one. Does that mean the contract is void? Legally, yes, Mara said. But practically? It is enough to muddy the water. It is enough to make a supplier think he has a valid lien right. It is enough to make a bank hesitate before reversing a charge. Eli Granger is banking on the confusion. He knows it won't hold up in a trial, but he knows you don't want a trial. He thinks you will pay $20,000 to make him go away. I am not paying him, I said. Good. I am drafting the demand letter now. We are putting him on notice for fraud and unfair deceptive trade practices. That carries treble damages in Colorado. If he has half a brain, he will run. And Tessa? I asked. The name felt heavy in my mouth. I am sending the trespass notice via certified mail to her last known address, and I advise you to tape a copy to the front door of the cabin. Cover your bases. I hung up. I felt a grim sense of satisfaction, but it was hollow. I had the law on my side, but I didn't have my sister. I needed coffee. I went back to the roasted bean. It was becoming my command post. June was there again, grinding beans. The shop was busier today, filled with tourists in expensive fleece vests heading out for hikes. I found a small table in the back and opened my laptop. June slid a cup of black coffee onto the table. On the house, she murmured. You look like you're planning a murder. Just a lawsuit, I said, rubbing my temples. Maybe two? June lingered, wiping a non-existent spot on the table. You know, she said, keeping her voice low. I was thinking about what you said yesterday, about your sister and the investment talk. I looked up. Yeah? There has been this guy coming through town for the last 2 months, June said. Flashy, drives a matte black Range Rover. Always has a group of people around him, buying them pastries, talking about escaping the matrix and asset velocity, real buzzword salad. Let me guess, I said. He is a coach? A wealth mentor, June corrected, rolling her eyes. His name is Vaughn Mercer. He rents out the event space at the community center on Tuesday nights. Invite only. I have seen Eli Granger in there, and I think I saw your sister there a couple of weeks ago. She was taking notes like she was in a lecture hall. Vaughn Mercer. The name clicked. I had heard Tessa whisper it on the phone that first night. Just keep the investors happy, okay? I need this. Vaughn. Do you know the name of his company? I asked. Mercer Path Capital, June said. Sounds fancy. But I looked them up. The website is all stock photos of guys in suits, shaking hands on yachts. Thank you, June, I said. Seriously. As soon as she walked away, I typed Mercer Path Capital into the search bar. The website was exactly as June described, sleek, vague, and filled with promises of unlocking equity and private placement opportunities. There was no physical address listed, just a registered agent in Delaware. I switched to social media. I didn't use it much, but Tessa lived on it. I searched for her profile. She hadn't posted in 3 days, unusual for her, but I went to her stories archive. There was a photo from 2 weeks ago. It was a selfie of Tessa, looking radiant and determined, holding a leather-bound notebook. The caption read, Taking control of my destiny. Big moves coming. Mercer Path Asset Life. In the background, slightly blurred, was a pop-up banner. I squinted at the screen. It was the Mercer Path Capital logo, a gold compass needle, and standing next to it, cut off at the shoulder, was a man in a sharp blue suit. I scrolled to the next photo. It was a group shot. Tessa was in the middle, smiling that wide, desperate smile I knew so well. Next to her was Eli Granger, and with his arm around both of them was the man in the blue suit. He was handsome in a polished, predatory way. Perfect teeth, perfect tan. Eyes that looked like they were calculating your net worth. Vaughn Mercer. I stared at the screen. Tessa wasn't just hiring a bad contractor. She was part of an ecosystem. Eli Granger and Vaughn Mercer were working together. Vaughn provided the education and the pressure. Eli provided the services to flip the assets, and people like Tessa provided the credit cards and the family cabins. It was a vertical integration of fraud. I felt a vibration in my pocket. I pulled out my phone. It was a notification from my smart lock app. Front door unlocked. Manual override. Time: 11:14 a.m. I frowned. I was in Pine Hollow. The cabin was 10 minutes away. I hadn't unlocked it. Then I saw the second notification. User login. Admin. Device: iPhone 15 Pro. Location: Briar Creek, Colorado. My blood ran cold. Briar Creek was 2 hours away. It was where I lived. It was where Westbridge Analytics was headquartered. Someone in Briar Creek had just logged into my smart home system using the admin credentials. My credentials. It wasn't Tessa. Tessa was here, or at least she had been yesterday, and Tessa had an older iPhone. I tapped on the location details. The ping was coming from a commercial district in Briar Creek. Not my apartment. I dialed Nadia Pierce. Nadia was the director of compliance at Westbridge. We had started in the analyst pool together 5 years ago. She was the only person at the office I trusted completely. "Lydia," she answered. "It is Sunday. Unless the server farm is on fire. This better be good. Nadia, I need you to check something for me, off the record." "I am listening." "Run a vendor search for Mercer Path Capital in our due diligence database and check if there is any cross-reference with Summit Ridge Services." "Lydia, you called the hotline yesterday about Summit Ridge. Marcus told me, what is going on?" "Just check. Nadia, please, I think my personal data might be compromised through a vendor breach." I heard the rapid clicking of a mechanical keyboard. "Okay, Summit Ridge is flagged for review based on your call," Nadia said. "Now searching Mercer Path Capital." What?" "They are not an approved vendor," Nadia said slowly, "but they are in the declined file. They applied for a partnership 6 months ago to offer financial wellness seminars to employees. We rejected them because their ownership structure was opaque. But what?" "There is a note here from the vetting analyst," Nadia said. "It says high-risk markers associated with previous dissolved entities involving real estate coaching schemes." "Lydia, why are you asking about this?" "Because my sister is mixed up with them," I said. "And someone just accessed my smart lock from Briar Creek using my admin login." "Nadia, is there any way a rejected vendor could have retained data or accessed employee profiles?" "Not legally," Nadia said. "But if they were in the application phase, they might have interacted with our procurement portal. If you use the same password for your personal accounts as your work portal." I went silent. I was careful. I used a password manager. But the Watson family checking account? That password was old. It was Watson 1990. Simple. Weak. "Lydia," Nadia said, her voice dropping, "if Mercer Path Capital is harvesting data from our employees, this is massive. This isn't just a scam. It is corporate espionage or a targeted phishing attack. You need to be really careful. If they are tracking you—" "They know I'm onto them," I said. "That is why they are logging in. They are checking my movements." "Change your passwords," Nadia ordered. "All of them. Now. And Lydia, watch your back." I changed every password I had, sitting there in the coffee shop with shaking hands. Then I got in my car. I had to go back to the cabin. I knew it was red-tagged. I knew it was unsafe. But I had left the printer there. And if Tessa had printed that contract, maybe she had printed other things. I needed the digital trail. I parked at the bottom of the driveway and walked up. The orange sticker was still bright on the window. The house was silent. I keyed in the new code I had just set. The door opened. The air inside was still thick with dust. I walked through the living room. Stepping over the drop cloths, I went into the makeshift office Tessa had set up on a folding table in the corner. The printer was there. I checked the paper tray. Empty. I pressed the menu button on the printer and navigated to print history. Document. sales_flyer_draft_v3.pdf. Time, yesterday, 4:30 p.m. She had printed something after I had kicked her out? No. She must have printed it right before she left. I looked around the room. The wastebasket was full. I dug through it. Fast food wrappers, coffee cups, and crumpled paper. I smoothed out a ball of paper. It was a flyer. For sale by owner, Mountain Modern Masterpiece coming soon to market. There were photos. Staged photos. One showed the living room with my furniture rearranged and a fake fire photoshopped into the hearth. Another showed the view from the deck, but it was the text that stopped my heart. Asking price. $450,000, cash only, quick close. The cabin was worth $600,000, easily, even in its current state. The land alone was worth $300,000. $450,000 was a fire sale price. It was a price designed to trigger greed, a price designed to get a cash wire fast. And the contact number at the bottom wasn't mine. It wasn't even Tessa's. It was a generic 1-800 number. It was just a template. I spun around. Tessa was standing in the hallway. She looked terrible. Her hair was matted, her eyes swollen almost shut. She was wearing the same clothes as yesterday, but they were rumpled and stained. She held a car key in one hand, her knuckles white. "Tessa," I said, "how did you get in?" "I still have a key," she said, her voice raspy. "The physical one. You changed the code, but you didn't change the locks." She walked into the room, her movements jerky and uncoordinated. She reached for the flyer in my hand. "Give me that." I pulled it back. "You were listing my house? For $450,000? Tessa, that is theft. That is grand larceny." "I wasn't listing it," she cried, her voice cracking. "It was just a mock-up. Vaughn said we needed to visualize the sale, to manifest the buyer. It is a technique." "Manifest a buyer?" I held the flyer up. "This says cash only. This says quick close. This isn't a vision board. Tessa, this is bait." She flinched. She looked at the window, then back at me. She was trembling, not a subtle shake, but a full-body vibration. "You have to give me the flyer," she whispered. "Please, Lydia, if I don't show him I am making progress. He is going to call the loan." "What loan?" I stepped closer. "The $5,000? Or is it more?" Tessa sank onto the folding chair. She put her head in her hands. "It is $50,000, she sobbed. "I borrowed $50,000 from the private fund to pay for the platinum mentorship, and then another $20,000 for the materials. It is a bridge loan, short term, but the interest, Lydia, the interest is 10% a week." My jaw dropped. 10% a week. That wasn't a loan. That was a death sentence. "Vaughn Mercer gave you this loan?" "Not Vaughn," she wept. "The fund, Mercer Path Strategic Fund. I signed a promissory note. They have my car title. They have a confession of judgment." I felt a wave of nausea. A confession of judgment meant she had already agreed to lose any lawsuit they filed before it even started. They could garnish her wages, seize her assets, destroy her instantly. "Tessa," I said, my voice shaking, "you are in a loan shark scheme. This isn't mentorship. It is organized crime." "No," she insisted, looking up with wild eyes. "Vaughn is a genius. He is helping me. I just hit a snag because you stopped the renovation. If you had just let me finish, I could have refinanced the cabin, paid off the loan, and we would both be rich." She was still drinking the Kool-Aid, even while it poisoned her. It was terrifying to watch. "Tessa," I said gently, "there is no refinance. There is no profit. He was going to sell this house out from under me, take the cash, and leave you with the debt. That is why the price is so low. He wanted a quick flip before I noticed." "You are lying!" she screamed. But there was no conviction in it. She looked at the dark window again. "He is coming. He said he is sending someone to check on the progress. I have to show him something." "Who is coming?" I don't know, she wailed. The asset manager, Lydia. I am scared. I can't leave. They know where I live in the city. They know where Dad lives. She was trapped. The charm was gone. The arrogance was gone. All that was left was a frightened little sister who had dug a hole so deep she couldn't see the sky. I felt that painful, familiar tug. I wanted to hug her. I wanted to tell her I would fix it. Don't give her cash. Give her choices. Mom's note burned in my pocket. You cannot stay here, I said firmly. The house is red-tagged. It is unsafe. And if these people are coming, I don't want you here. Where do I go? She whispered. We are going to the motel. I said. You are staying with me, and tomorrow, we are going to the police. No police. She grabbed my arm. If we go to the police, the deal is void. I lose the equity. I lose everything. You have already lost it, Tessa, I snapped. The money is gone. The only thing you have left to lose is your freedom. She stared at me, her face crumbling. Just then, my phone rang. It was an unknown number. Area code 303. Denver. I looked at Tessa. She was chewing her thumbnail, eyes darting around the room. I answered. This is Lydia. Ms. Watson? The voice was female, sharp, and trembling with suppressed rage. My name is Celeste Wren. I am calling about the property on Ridge Road. My stomach dropped. What about it? I want to know why your sister is not answering her phone, Celeste said. And I want to know when I'm getting the keys. I wired the earnest money deposit 3 days ago, $25,000. I closed my eyes. Ms. Wren, I said, my voice steady despite the chaos in my mind. Who did you wire the money to? To the escrow account, she said. Mercer Path Holdings. Your sister sent me the instructions. She said the title transfer was expedited. Ms. Wren, I said, I am going to tell you something, and I need you to listen carefully. I am the owner of the cabin. I did not list it for sale. My sister did not have the authority to sell it. Silence on the other end. Then, a sharp intake of breath. Are you telling me, Celeste said, her voice dropping to a dangerous whisper, that I just wired $25,000 to a scam? I am telling you that you and I are both victims of the same people, I said. And if you want your money back, I need your help. I looked at Tessa. She had stopped crying. She was listening, her face white as a sheet. She knew what this meant. It wasn't just a family dispute anymore. It was wire fraud. It was federal. I am listening, Celeste said. Meet me tomorrow, I said. In Pine Hollow, at the coffee shop. Bring the wire confirmation. Bring the emails. I will be there, Celeste said. And I am bringing my husband. He is a cop. The line went dead. I lowered the phone. I looked at my sister. You sold my house, I said softly. You actually sold it. I just took a reservation, Tessa stammered. It was just a deposit, to hold the spot. It is over, Tessa, I said. The game is over. I grabbed her duffel bag from the floor and threw it at her. Get in the car. Lydia, please. Get in the car. She grabbed the bag. We walked out into the cold night air. The wind was howling through the pines now. As I locked the door, I looked back at the orange sticker. Unsafe. It wasn't just the house. It was everything. I drove us down the mountain in silence. Tessa curled into a ball in the passenger seat, checking her phone every 30 seconds, jumping every time headlights appeared in the rearview mirror. I wasn't scared anymore. The fear had crystallized into something harder. Cold rage. Vaughn Mercer had come into my town. He had targeted my family. He had used my home as bait, and he had corrupted my sister until she was a criminal. And now, I knew he was lurking in the systems of my own company. I gripped the steering wheel. I didn't care if it dragged Westbridge Analytics into a scandal. I didn't care if it cost me my promotion. I was going to burn Mercer Path Capital to the ground, and I was going to use every spreadsheet, every paper trail, and every ounce of bureaucratic fury I possessed to do it. "Lydia," Tessa whispered from the dark, "what are we going to do?" I kept my eyes on the road. "We are going to war." The Monday morning light filtering into Mara Klein's conference room was gray and unforgiving, much like the mood of the woman sitting across from me. Celeste Wren was sharper than I expected. She was in her late 40s, dressed in a tailored blazer that cost more than my entire wardrobe, with a posture that suggested she was used to being the most powerful person in the room. Currently, however, she was vibrating with the specific, potent rage of someone who realizes they have been played. "I want to be clear," Celeste said, sliding a thick file folder across the mahogany table. "I do not care about your family drama, Ms. Watson. I care about the $25,000 I wired to a holding company that your sister assured me was the escrow agent for this property." I opened the folder. My hands felt cold. Inside were printouts of emails, wire transfer confirmations, and a digital brochure that made my humble cabin look like a luxury retreat. "I understand," I said, my voice steady only through sheer force of will. "And I want to help you get it back." Mara Klein sat at the head of the table, her face unreadable. She reached for the top sheet in the file. "Let us look at the communication chain," Mara said. I leaned in. The emails were professional, courteous, and terrifyingly convincing. They were sent from an address, transactions@lydiawatsonproperties.com. I stared at the address. "I do not own that domain," I said. "I do not have a properties company." "Tessa told me you were the silent partner," Celeste said, tapping a manicured fingernail on the paper. "She said you handled the assets while she handled the client relations. She sent me an email from this address confirming the price and the closing date. It was signed by you." I looked at the signature block. It was the same cut-and-paste forgery from the construction contract, but smoothed out, digitized, and made to look official. "That is not me," I whispered. "I never wrote this. I never saw this." "Then who is Sienna?" Celeste asked. "Who?" "Sienna Park, the deal coordinator. She is the one who sent the wire instructions. See here?" Celeste pointed to an email thread. "Sienna Park, executive assistant to the partners, Mercer Path Capital." "I don't know a Sienna," I said. "But Mercer Path, that is the group my sister is involved with." Mara looked up, her eyes sharp behind her glasses. "This is sophisticated," she said. "They created a fake domain in your name to legitimize the transaction, then routed the money to their own entity. This isn't just Tessa playing real estate agent. This is wire fraud, federal wire fraud." Mara turned to me. "Lydia, we have enough here to go to the police right now. We can file a report, and they will likely arrest Tessa within the hour." My heart seized. Arrest Tessa, handcuffs, a permanent record, the destruction of her life. "However," Mara continued, holding up a hand, "if we arrest Tessa now, the money is likely gone. Mercer Path, this Vaughn Mercer character, will claim she was a rogue agent. He will cut her loose, claim ignorance, and disappear with Ms. Wren's $25,000 and whatever else he has siphoned from other victims. He has insulated himself. Tessa is the fall guy." "So what do we do?" Celeste demanded. "I want my money." "We need the big fish," Mara said. "We need to catch Mercer accepting the money or directing the fraud. We need to link him to the fake domain and the wire instructions directly." She looked at me. "Lydia, I am suggesting a controlled approach. We do not tip our hand yet. We gather more evidence. We bring in the county investigator, but it means you have to play along for a little while longer. You cannot let Tessa know we have this file." I felt a wave of nausea. "You want me to let her think she's getting away with it?" "I want you to let her think she is still in play," Mara said, "because if she panics, she tips off Mercer, and he scrubs the servers. We need her to stay in the middle until we can close the trap around him." It felt morally rot. It felt like I was setting a snare for my own sister while she was already bleeding. But then I looked at Celeste Wren's furious face. I looked at the fake signature that was mocking me from the paper. "Okay," I said. "We do it your way." I left the law office with a headache that throbbed behind my eyes. I had to go back to the cabin, not to sleep. I was still at the motel, but to meet Ross Calder. When I arrived, the orange unsafe sticker on the window seemed to glow in the afternoon shadow. Ross was kneeling by the side of the house. Near the propane tank, he stood up as I approached, wiping grease onto a rag. "It is worse than I thought," Ross said, skipping the pleasantries. "Tell me," I said. "See this trench?" He pointed to a jagged scar in the earth where the soil had been hastily turned over. "They ran a new gas line to the kitchen island, for a range that isn't there yet." "Okay," I said. "They used the wrong pipe," Ross said, his voice hard. "They used indoor flex piping underground. It is not rated for burial. The weight of the dirt is already crushing it. If the ground freezes, which it will, any day now, that pipe is going to crack. You will have a propane leak directly under the foundation. One spark, and this whole place is kindling." I stared at the dirt. "They built a bomb," I said. "Basically," Ross said. "Lydia, no one can be in this house. I mean it. Not for an hour, not for a minute. The gas is shut off at the main now. But I am flagging this as an imminent hazard. If anyone stays here, they are risking their life." This was it. This was the lever I needed. It wasn't about me being mean. It wasn't about the money. It was about survival. I walked into the house. Tessa was sitting on the floor of the living room. She had come back with me from the motel this morning, insisting she needed to secure the site and pack the rest of her things properly. She looked small in the center of the room, surrounded by boxes. "Tessa," I said. She jumped. She was holding her phone, her thumb hovering over the screen. "I was just emailing the staging company," she said, her voice high and brittle. "I think if we just put some rugs down, we can hide the subfloor and—" "Stop," I said. "Ross just found the gas line. It is illegal. Tessa, it is leaking. The house is a bomb." She blinked, her face blank. "We can fix it," Eli said. "Eli is gone," I said. "And you are leaving, now." "I can't," she burst out, scrambling to her feet. "Lydia, you don't understand. Vaughn is sending the inspector tomorrow. If the house is empty, he will know I lost control. He will call the loan." "There is no loan," I shouted, the anger finally breaking through my calm. "There is only theft. You are being played. Tessa, there is no inspector coming to approve you. There is only a con man waiting to take the next check." "He promised," she screamed back, tears streaming down her dusty face. "He promised he would wipe the debt. He said if I brought him a real asset, a piece of property with clear title, he would forgive the $50,000 I owe for the mentorship. He said he would flip it, take his cut, and give me the rest to pay you back. I was doing this to fix it. Lydia, I was going to replace your money before you even knew it was gone." The confession hung in the air, raw and pathetic. She truly believed it. She believed she could rob me to save me. It was the twisted logic of an addict. "He lied to you," I said softly. "He was never going to give you a cut. He was going to sell this house, take the cash, and leave you with the foreclosure and the lawsuits." "No," she sobbed. "No, he is a mentor. He is a visionary." I stepped closer. "He is a criminal, and right now, so are you." She froze. "I saw the emails. Tessa," I said. "I saw the fake domain. I saw the wire instructions to Celeste Wren." Her face went gray. How do you know about that?" "Because she called me, and because I have a lawyer." Tessa collapsed. She didn't fall. She just dissolved, sinking onto a stack of drywall sheets, burying her face in her hands. "I am going to jail," she muffled into her palms. "Maybe," I said, "but right now, you have a choice." I channeled everything Mara had told me. I locked away the sister who wanted to comfort her and brought out the analyst who managed risk. Option 1, I said. You stay here. I call the sheriff. I show them the forged contract, the gas line report, and the wire fraud documents. They arrest you for trespassing and fraud tonight. Tessa whimpered. Option 2, I said. You pack that bag. You get in your car. You leave this property and you do not come back. You go to Dad's house. Or you go to a hotel. I don't care. But you get out of my life and you cooperate with my lawyer when we call you. You tell us everything about Vaughn, every text, every email. She looked up, her eyes red and swollen. If I talk, Vaughn will destroy me. Vaughn is already destroying you, I said. I am the only one offering you a lifeboat. She wiped her nose on her sleeve. Please, she whispered. Please don't tell Dad. Please. Lydia, he thinks I am finally succeeding. He thinks I am a partner in the firm. If he knows I am a fraud, it will kill him. It was the ultimate weapon, Dad's approval, the currency she had been chasing her entire life. I won't tell him today, I said. But I can't promise I will never tell him. That depends on you. She nodded, a jerky, broken movement. Okay, I will go. She began to shove things into her duffel bag with frantic, clumsy hands, clothes, chargers, a half-empty bottle of wine. She was shaking so hard she dropped her hairbrush twice. Here, I said, unable to watch her struggle. Let me help. I grabbed a stack of papers from the folding table she had been using as a desk. No, she lunged for them. I got it. But she was too slow. The stack shifted in my hands, and the papers slid out, fanning across the floor. I looked down. They weren't blueprints. They weren't receipts. They were scripts, printed on thick, glossy paper with the Mercer Path logo at the top. Script 1, Overcoming Family Objections. When family members express doubt, do not engage with their fear. Pivot to the vision. Say, I understand you are scared of growth because you have settled for safety, but I am building a legacy. Script 2, Creating Urgency. Tell the asset holder that the market is shifting. Use phrases like window of opportunity and pre-market exclusive. Create a deadline that does not exist to force a signature. And underneath the scripts, a spreadsheet. Warm leads, October. Name, Ray Watson. Status, cultivating. Potential capital. Home equity. Line of credit. Name, Lydia Watson. Status, asset secured. Cabin, potential capital. 401k rollover. I stared at the paper, the world tilted on its axis. Status, cultivating. She wasn't just scamming me. She was targeting Dad. She had a plan to liquidate his home equity. Tessa, I said, my voice barely a whisper. She snatched the papers from the floor, clutching them to her chest like a shield. She looked at me with a mixture of shame and defiance that made my stomach turn. It is standard sales training, she stammered. It is just leads. You have a script for manipulating me, I said. You have a plan to drain Dad's retirement. I was going to pay it back, she screamed. It is leverage. It is how wealth is built. It is how families are murdered, I said. I pointed to the door. Get out, before I change my mind and call the sheriff right now. She didn't argue. She zipped the bag, threw the papers inside, and ran. I listened to her SUV start up, the engine revving high as she tore out of the driveway. I stood in the silence of the dangerous, broken house. I felt dirty. I felt like I needed to scrub my skin with steel wool. It wasn't just that she had stolen from me. It was that she had studied how to do it. She had rehearsed the lines. The emotional breakdown yesterday? The I had to do it speech? It was probably script number 3. I didn't stay at the cabin. Ross was right. It felt like the air itself was pressurized. I locked the door, pasted a fresh no trespassing sign over the keypad, and drove back to the motel in Pine Hollow. My phone rang as I was pulling into the parking lot. It was Nadia Pierce. Lydia, she said. Her tone was strictly professional. devoid of the friend warmth she usually had. "Are you somewhere private?" "I am in my car," I said. "What is it?" "I ran the cross-reference you asked for," Nadia said. "It is bad. Lydia, internal audit flagged 3 purchase orders this morning. They were submitted by a junior marketing manager for external strategy consulting. The vendor is Mercer Path Solutions." "Solutions?" I asked. "Not capital?" "They changed the suffix to dodge the block list," Nadia said. "But the tax ID matches the one you gave me, and here's the kicker. The invoices are just under the threshold for executive review. They are approved. Westbridge has paid them $15,000 in the last month." "Oh God," I breathed. "And Lydia," Nadia paused. "The marketing manager who approved them? He is young, new hire, and when I pulled his file, he listed a Tessa Watson as a reference on his application 6 months ago." I closed my eyes, leaning my head against the steering wheel. "She recruited him," I said. "She got him a job at my company so he could approve invoices for her boss. This is crossing lines, Lydia," Nadia warned. "If compliance connects this to you, even if you are the victim, it looks like a ring. It looks like nepotism and embezzlement. You are a senior analyst. You have fiduciary duty." "I know," I said. "Nadia, I am going to report it. I am building a case with the county investigator. I just need a few more days." "You might not have days," Nadia said. "If the CFO sees this report on Monday, heads are going to roll. I can hold the red flag for maybe 24 hours. After that, I have to escalate. It is my job." 24 hours, I said. "Give me that, please." "Tomorrow at 5 p.m., Nadia said. "After that, I am filing the report. Good luck, Lydia." The call ended. I sat in the dim light of the motel parking lot, watching moths flutter around a street lamp. The net was tightening. It wasn't just my cabin anymore. It was my career. If Vaughn went down, he would drag everyone with him. The junior manager, Tessa, and me. My phone pinged again. An email. From Eli Granger, Ella Summit Rigerenos, com. Subject: Preliminary Notice of Lien. I opened it. It was a formal document, scanned and attached, a notice of intent to file mechanics lien against my property address. Amount due, $14,500. Reason: unpaid labor and materials, breach of contract. He was doubling down. He knew I was cornered. He thought I would panic and pay him to keep the title clean so I could sell. He didn't know I wasn't selling. I forwarded the email to Mara immediately. 2 minutes later, Mara texted back, "Got it. Responding now. I am attaching the inspector's report, citing the code violations and the illegal gas line. I am also attaching a draft of the fraud complaint we are prepared to file with the Attorney General. I am telling him that if he files the lien, we sue for slander of title and malicious prosecution. He will back down. He is a bully, not a martyr." I let out a breath I didn't know I was holding. Mara was a shark. I was glad she was my shark. But even with Mara fighting the legal battles and Nadia holding the corporate line, I felt a profound, aching loneliness. I checked into my room. Room 104, a box with 2 queen beds and a painting of a generic mountain stream. I didn't unpack. I just sat on the edge of the bed. The silence of the room was heavy. I pulled out my phone. I didn't call Dad. I couldn't. He was a lead now. If I called him, I would have to tell him. And if I told him, I would break his heart. I scrolled through my contacts until I found the saved voicemail. It was 3 years old. I pressed play. "Hi, Lidybug," the voice crackled. It was warm, slightly breathless. "Mom." "It is Mom. Just calling to see how the new apartment is. Make sure you check the deadbolt, okay? And don't work too late. Your father is out in the garage fixing the lawnmower, which means we will be buying a new lawnmower tomorrow." She laughed. A bright, easy sound. "Call me back when you can. Love you." I let the message play again, and again. I curled up on top of the scratchy bedspread. Still in my coat, I cried. I didn't cry for the money. I didn't cry for the house. I cried because I wanted someone to tell me to check the deadbolt. I wanted someone to laugh at the chaos. I wanted someone who could handle the broken pieces of this family without cutting their hands. Mom had been the buffer. She had absorbed Tessa's wildness and Dad's passivity and turned it into a functioning home. Without her, we were just sharp edges colliding in the dark. Give her choices. Her note had said, I had given Tessa a choice, and Tessa had chosen to run away with her script book. I fell asleep with the phone clutched in my hand. The ghost of my mother's voice, the only thing keeping the panic at bay. The next morning, the world was crisp and cold. The sky was a hard, brilliant blue. I was drinking bad motel coffee when Mara called. Lydia, she said, I just got off the phone with Lionel Hart. He is the investigator for the county district attorney's office. Does he care? I asked. Or is this just a civil matter to him? He cares, Mara said. Apparently, we aren't the first. He has a file on Mercer Path. Complaints from 3 other counties. But they never had a person on the inside. They never had a witness who could place Vaughn at the scene of the fraud. I can, I said. And Celeste can... Exactly, Mara said. Lionel wants to set up a sting, but it is risky. Tell me. Celeste contacted the deal coordinator this morning. She played dumb. She said she was worried about the lack of communication from Tessa, but she still wants the property. She said she has another $25,000 in cash she wants to bring to finalize the terms because she doesn't trust Wires anymore. And they bought it? Greed is a blinder, Mara said. Vaughn Mercer is holding a wealth reset workshop tonight at the community center in Pine Hollow. He told Celeste to come there. He wants to close the deal in person. He thinks he can charm her, take the cash, and stall for time on the title. He is coming here, I said. Tonight. Lionel wants to be there, Mara said. He will be in the back. He wants Celeste to engage Vaughn. Get him to accept the money or sign a receipt for the property sale. That constitutes the criminal act in his jurisdiction. Where do I fit in? I asked. Lionel asked if you would be willing to be there, Mara said slowly. Not in the room at first, but nearby. If Vaughn tries to deny he knows Tessa, or denies he knows about the cabin, you are the proof. You are the owner. Your presence explodes his deniability. If I show up, Vaughn will know the jig is up, I said. That is the point, Mara said. We want to see what he does when he is cornered. Does he run? Does he threaten? Lionel will be recording everything. But Lydia, it will be intense. He is a manipulator. He will try to turn it around on you. I thought about the scripts in Tessa's bag. Do not engage with their fear. I thought about the purchase orders at Westbridge. I thought about the gas line ticking under my floorboards. I will do it, I said. Okay, Mara said. Come to my office at 4. We will prep with Lionel. And Lydia? Yeah? Wear comfortable shoes, in case we have to move fast. I hung up. I looked at myself in the motel mirror. My eyes were tired, but they were clear. I wasn't the cautious finance analyst anymore. I wasn't the little sister. I was the owner, and I was going to collect. The Pine Hollow Community Center was a low-slung brick building that smelled permanently of floor wax and stale popcorn. Usually, it hosted zoning board meetings or the high school Rotary Club. But tonight, it had been transformed. Black drapes covered the bulletin boards. Uplights cast a sleek, violet glow against the cinder-block walls. A professional sound system hummed with low-frequency ambient music, the kind that made you feel focused and expensive. At the front of the room, a large screen displayed a gold compass needle rotating slowly against a black background. Mercer Path Capital. Wealth Reset Workshop. I stood in the back of the room, hidden in the shadows of the tech booth. I was wearing a baseball cap and a bulky coat, trying to look like just another local looking for a miracle. Beside me, leaning against the wall with the casual boredom of a man waiting for a bus, was Lionel Hart. The county investigator didn't look like a cop. He looked like a retired math teacher in a corduroy jacket, but I noticed his eyes never stopped moving, scanning the faces of the 40 or so people filling the folding chairs. He is good, Lionel murmured, his voice barely audible over the ambient track. Look at the setup. No tables. He wants them exposed, vulnerable. I watched as the room filled up. It wasn't just tourists. I recognized a mechanic from the town garage, a waitress from the diner, people I knew, people who worked hard for their money and were tired of running in place. They looked anxious and hopeful, clutching the glossy brochures that had been placed on every seat. At 7 o'clock sharp, the music swelled and then cut out. Vaughn Mercer walked onto the small stage. He didn't stride out like a rock star. He walked out quietly, humbly, holding a bottle of water. He was handsome. Yes, tanned skin, perfect hair, a suit that fit him like a second skin. But he projected an air of approachability. He looked like the friend who had figured it out and wanted to tell you the secret. He stood in the center of the spotlight and just looked at the audience for a long, silent moment. I know why you are here, he said softly. His voice was warm, resonant, amplified perfectly by the microphone clipped to his lapel. You are here because you did everything right. You went to school, you got the job, you paid the mortgage, and yet, at the end of the month, the math doesn't work. The system is designed to keep you running on a treadmill that never goes anywhere. He paused, letting the words sink in. I saw heads nodding in the audience. He was validating their pain. He was telling them it wasn't their fault. They tell you to save, Vaughn continued, pacing slowly. They tell you to be safe, but safety is a trap. Safety is how they keep you poor. The wealthy do not save. The wealthy leverage. They move assets. They understand that money is energy, and energy has to flow. It was gibberish. It was a word salad of economic buzzwords and self-help spiritualism, but he sold it with such absolute, unwavering certainty that it sounded like gospel. Tonight, Vaughn said, smiling, I am going to show you how to stop being a storage unit for debt and start being a conduit for wealth. I felt a tap on my arm. Lionel nodded toward the side of the room. Standing near the emergency exit, managing a table of sign-up sheets, was a young woman. She was dressed in black, tapping furiously on a tablet. That is the assistant, Lionel whispered. Sienna Park. She is the one who sent the wire instructions to Celeste. I looked at her. Dark hair, sharp features, efficient movements. A jolt of recognition hit me so hard, I almost gasped. I knew her. I didn't know her from Pine Hollow. I knew her from Briar Creek. 6 months ago, I had sat in the back of a vendor onboarding session at Westbridge Analytics. It was a mandatory training for new suppliers on our procurement software. I remembered noticing a young woman in the front row who asked detailed, technical questions about the approval thresholds for invoices, specifically, how to submit bills that would bypass the executive review queue. It was her, Sienna Park. My stomach turned over. She wasn't just Vaughn's assistant. She was the mole. She had infiltrated Westbridge, learned the internal controls, and was now using that knowledge to funnel money out of the company through fake consulting invoices. Lydia? Lionel whispered. You okay? I know her, I hissed back. She was at my office. Lionel, they are inside my company. Keep your head down, he said. Don't let her see you. I pulled my hat lower, my heart hammering against my ribs. This wasn't just a real estate scam. This was a sophisticated, multi-pronged attack. They targeted the individual, Tessa, and the institution, Westbridge, simultaneously, on stage. Vaughn was wrapping up his opening monologue. I am not looking for clients, he said. I am looking for partners. I am looking for people who are ready to take action. We have a few select opportunities available in our secured asset portfolio. These are properties that are already acquired, already vetting, and ready for immediate liquidity. He gestured to the screen. An image appeared. It was a photo of a mountain cabin, my cabin. It was one of the staged photos Tessa had taken. The furniture was rearranged, the lighting filtered. This property on Ridge Road, Vaughn said. Acquired just this week from a distressed seller who needed out. We have the equity. We have the contractors. All we need is the bridge capital to finalize the flip. Distressed seller, that was me. In the second row. A woman raised her hand. It was Celeste Wren. She played the part perfectly. She looked eager, slightly desperate, clutching her purse. "Mr. Mercer?" she called out. "I am interested. I have the liquidity you talked about." Vaughn stopped pacing. He looked at her with a laser-like focus. He smiled, a genuine, dazzling expression of approval. "What is your name?" he asked. "Celeste," she said. "Celeste Wren." "Celeste," Vaughn repeated. "I like your energy. You are ready. Come talk to me." He hopped off the stage, bypassing the stairs. Athletic and dynamic, he walked right up to Celeste. The rest of the room watched with jealous fascination. Lionel and I moved closer, hugging the wall. Lionel adjusted his jacket. I knew he had a recording device running. "I have the cash," Celeste said, her voice trembling slightly, whether from acting or nerves. I couldn't tell. 25,000. I brought it. But I want to be sure about the property. My husband. He is skeptical. Husbands usually are, Vaughn said, chuckling. The crowd laughed. They fear change. But you, Celeste, you have vision. Let me tell you about that cabin. It is a gem. Custom A-frame. We just redid the kitchen. Quartz. High-end appliances. And the location? It has direct access to the seasonal creek in the back. Perfect for the rental market. I froze. The creek. There was a seasonal creek on the property line, but it was deep in the woods. You couldn't see it from the house. You couldn't see it on Google Maps because of the tree cover. The only way to know about the creek was to walk the land. Vaughn hadn't just looked at photos. He had been there. He had walked my property. He had probably stood on my deck while I was at work, planning how to sell my life out from under me. "And the title?" Celeste asked. "Is it clear?" 100%, Vaughn said, lowering his voice to a confidential murmur. "We hold the deed in our trust. My partner, Tessa, handles the paperwork. It is clean. Celeste, it is just waiting for you. Can I sign the papers tonight?" Celeste asked. "If I give you the money?" "Absolutely," Vaughn said. "Sienna has the reservation agreement. It locks in your position. The equity is yours the moment you sign." "Okay," Celeste said. "Okay, let's do it." She reached into her bag and pulled out a thick envelope. Vaughn's eyes flickered to the envelope. The hunger was there, just for a split second, before the mask of the benevolent mentor slid back into place. "Sienna," Vaughn called out, snapping his fingers. "Bring the agreement for Celeste." Sienna started to move from the back of the room. Then, the side door of the community center banged open. Heads turned. Vaughn looked annoyed at the interruption. A woman stumbled in. She was wearing a trench coat that was buttoned wrong, her hair messy and windblown. She looked like she hadn't slept in 3 days. It was Tessa. She wasn't supposed to be here. She was supposed to be at the motel, or halfway to Denver. She scanned the room, her eyes wild, until they landed on Vaughn. "Tessa?" Vaughn said, his smile tightening. "We are in the middle of a workshop." Tessa walked down the center aisle. She ignored the people staring at her. She walked straight to Vaughn. "I can't do it," she said. Her voice was shaking, but it carried in the silent room. "I can't do it. Vaughn, you have to let me out." Vaughn took a step toward her, placing a hand on her shoulder. It looked comforting, but I could see the tension in his fingers. He was gripping her hard. "Tessa, you are tired," he said smoothly. "You have been working hard on the project. Why don't you go sit in the green room? We will talk after." "No," Tessa said, pulling away. "No more talking. You said the loan would be forgiven if I brought you the listing. But you are selling it before it is even finished. The gas line is broken. Vaughn, the house is unsafe. You can't sell it to her." She pointed at Celeste. A murmur went through the crowd. The spell was breaking. Vaughn's face changed. The warmth evaporated. His eyes went cold and hard, like flint. "Tessa," he said, his voice dropping an octave, "you are embarrassing yourself. You signed the commitments. You took the funds. You spent the money on your personal debts. Do not come in here and try to blame the strategy for your lack of execution." "I didn't spend it," Tessa cried. "I spent it on the materials you told me to buy. From your vendor." "You have a contractual obligation," Vaughn snapped. "Now get out, or I will have security remove you." "She isn't going anywhere." I stepped out from the shadows. I walked down the aisle, my boots loud on the linoleum floor. I took off my hat. Vaughn looked at me. He didn't know who I was at first, but Sienna did. I saw her freeze near the exit, her face draining of color. "Who are you?" Vaughn asked, looking bored. "Another dissatisfied friend of Tessa's?" "I am Lydia Watson," I said. Stopping next to my sister, "I am the owner of the cabin you are trying to sell, and I am the distressed seller you just lied about." The room went deadly silent. Vaughn looked at me, then at Tessa. He didn't panic. He didn't run. He laughed. It was a short, pitying laugh. "Ah," Vaughn said. Turning to the audience, "This makes sense. Everyone, this is the sister Tessa told me about, the one who has been holding her back." He looked at me with a sad, sympathetic smile. "Lydia, isn't it? Tessa told me you were having a hard time. She said you were emotionally unstable, that you were jealous of her success." "Success?" I said, my voice rising. "She is homeless. Vaughn, she is in debt to a loan shark. You aren't helping her. You are eating her alive." "See?" Vaughn said to the crowd, gesturing at me. "This is the scarcity mindset in action. Fear, anger, blame. She cannot stand to see her sister trying to build something, so she invents a crisis. She invents gas leaks and safety issues to sabotage the deal." He was good. He was terrifyingly good. He was twisting the reality in real time, using the very accusations I was making as proof of my own instability. "I didn't invent the gas leak," I said. "The county inspector did, and I didn't invent the fraud. You did." "Security!" Vaughn called out, looking toward the back. "Please escort these women out. They are disrupting the learning environment." "Wait!" The voice came from the back of the room, a man's voice. I turned. Standing in the doorway was Ray Watson, my father. He was wearing his good jacket, the one he wore to church. He looked confused, holding a crumpled flyer in his hand. "Dad?" Tessa whispered. "Ray," Vaughn said, his face lighting up. "Ray Watson. Come in. Come in. I am sorry about this family squabble." "We were just handling it." Dad walked down the aisle. He looked at Tessa, who was trembling. He looked at me, standing tall and angry, and then he looked at Vaughn, the man in the suit who spoke with such confidence. "Lydia," Dad said, his voice stern, "what are you doing?" "Tessa called me. She said you were trying to ruin her presentation." "She called you?" I looked at Tessa. I didn't know what to do." Tessa stammered. "I thought if he was here, maybe Vaughn would listen." "Dad," I said, "this man is a con artist. He is trying to sell my cabin illegally. He has stolen thousands of dollars from us." "Lydia, stop it," Dad said, sounding exhausted. "Always with the drama. Vaughn has been very transparent with me. We have had several meetings." My heart stopped. "Several meetings?" "He is helping me unlock the equity in the house, Lydia," Dad said. "He explained it all. The HELOC, the leverage. It is a sound strategy." "Why do you have to be so negative? Why can't you just support your sister and me?" Vaughn smiled. He put a hand on Dad's shoulder. "Thank you, Ray. It is hard when the younger generation doesn't understand the vision, but we will get there." I felt like I had been punched in the gut. Vaughn had already gotten to him. He had been cultivating Dad for weeks, probably while I was at work. He had turned my father against me before I even knew there was a war. I looked at Dad. "He is stealing your retirement, Dad." "That is enough," Dad said. "Apologize to Mr. Mercer, Lydia, and let Tessa finish her work." I stood there, isolated. The crowd was murmuring, looking at me like I was the villain, the jealous sister, the ungrateful daughter. Vaughn had won. He had weaponized my family against me. "Actually," Celeste Wren spoke up, She stepped forward, dropping the act. Her voice was crisp and cold. I don't think she needs to apologize. Mr. Watson. Celeste opened her folder. She pulled out a paper. This is a wire confirmation, Celeste said, holding it up for the room to see. $25,000 sent to Mercer Path Holdings. And this? She pulled out another paper. Is the email from Lydia Watson Properties confirming the sale. The email was sent from an IP address registered to Mercer Path Capital. She turned to Vaughn. I traced the headers. Vaughn, my husband is a detective, but I'm a forensic accountant. Vaughn blinked. It was the first crack in the armor. And these photos? Celeste held up the brochure. These were taken inside Lydia's home, without her permission. That is breaking and entering. That is invasion of privacy. She turned to Dad. Mr. Watson, your daughter isn't dramatic. She is a victim, and so are you. Look at this man. Look at him. Dad looked at the papers. He looked at the wire transfer. He looked at the fake signature. But, Dad stammered, but he said it was a trust. It is a shell company, Celeste said. There is no trust. There is just a bank account in the Caymans. Vaughn's smile vanished completely. He checked his watch. Sienna, he said quietly. Car, you aren't going anywhere, Lionel Hart said. Lionel stepped away from the wall. He didn't pull a gun, but he pulled a badge. It was a small gold shield that caught the light. Lionel Hart, County District Attorney's Office, he announced. Mr. Mercer, I need you to stay right there. We are seizing all documents and electronic devices in this room pursuant to an investigation into real estate fraud and securities violations. Panic rippled through the room. The audience began to stand up, chairs scraping loudly. Vaughn didn't look at Lionel. He looked at me. His eyes were dead. There was no anger, no fear, just a flat, reptilian assessment. You are a mistake, Lydia, he said softly. You are a liability. I am the owner, I said. This is harassment, Vaughn announced to the room, raising his voice again. This is a coordinated attack by the local government to stifle innovation. We will be filing suit. He turned and walked briskly toward the emergency exit. Stop him! Celeste yelled. Lionel moved to intercept, but the crowd was panicking, blocking the aisle. Vaughn slipped through the side door. Sienna was already gone. Let him go, Lionel said, holding up a hand. We have the room. We have the documents. If he runs, he adds flight to the charges. I looked at Dad. He was holding the fake contract, his hands shaking. He looked old. He looked smaller than I had ever seen him. He told me we were partners, Dad whispered. Tessa was sobbing quietly, standing next to him, but she didn't touch him. She knew she had brought this wolf to the door. Lydia, Lionel said, appearing at my elbow, we need to clear the scene. Deputies are on the way to secure the evidence. He got away, I said bitterly. He left the building, Lionel corrected. He didn't get away. We have his assistant's laptop. We have the sign-in sheets. We have the wire fraud. We have enough. Ms. Watson? A young man in a hoodie ran in from the front entrance. He looked like one of the attendees who had stepped out for a smoke. Is that your Honda in the lot? The silver one? Yes, I said. Someone just slashed your tire, he said. Some guy in a suit. He just walked by, stuck a knife in the sidewall, and got into a Range Rover. I felt a chill go down my spine. It wasn't a random act of vandalism. It was a message. You are a liability. He is marking you, Lionel said grimly. Intimidation, standard tactic when they get exposed. I am not scared of a flat tire, I said, though my hands were trembling. You should be scared of what it implies, Lionel said. He knows which car is yours. He knows where you are. Lydia, you need to leave. I will have a deputy escort you to the motel. I can't go to the motel, I said. He knows I am there. Then go to your father's, Lionel said. Ray, take your daughters home. Lock the doors. Do not answer the phone. Dad looked up, dazed. Yes, yes, of course. The house. We will go to the house. We walked out into the cool night air. My car was sitting under a streetlight, listing heavily to the left. The front tire was shredded. It looked violent, personal. I looked at Tessa. She was staring at the flat tire, her face pale. He did that, she whispered. Vaughn did that. Get in Dad's truck, I told her. My phone buzzed. It was Mara. Lydia. Bad news. I just heard from a contact at Westbridge. Legal is moving fast. They found the connection between Sienna Park and the vendor payments. They are spinning up an internal investigation. I texted back. That is good, right? Mara's reply came instantly. No, it is containment. If they link Vaughn to you, even as a victim, they might fire you to cut the risk. They will frame it as a conflict of interest or failure to disclose. Nadia is trying to hold them off, but you have a target on your back. I stood in the parking lot, the wind biting through my coat. I had exposed the scam. I had saved Dad's equity. I had stopped Celeste from losing another dime, but the cost was coming due. Vaughn was loose. My car was disabled. My family was broken. And now, my career was about to be collateral damage. Lydia, come on, Dad called from his truck. His voice was shaky, but he was trying to take charge. I looked at my phone. I had the files. I had the photos of the fake contract. I had the recording of the Wealth Reset workshop that Lionel had just airdropped to me. I could stay quiet. I could let Westbridge find it on their own and hope they showed mercy. Or I could control the narrative. I opened my email app. I composed a new message. To Compliance at Westbridge Analytics. Legal at Westbridge Analytics. CC Lionel Hart. Mara Klein. Subject Urgent. Vendor Fraud Report. Mercer Path. Capital/Summit Ridge Services. I attached everything. The forged signature. The photo of Sienna Park at the event. The screenshots of the internal purchase orders Nadia had told me about. The police incident number Lionel had just generated. I typed the body of the email. My name is Lydia Watson. Senior Analyst. I am self-reporting a sophisticated fraud scheme targeting my personal property that utilizes Westbridge vendor channels. I have identified a mole within our vendor onboarding system, Sienna Park, and unauthorized invoices approved by compromised personnel. I am cooperating fully with the Pine Hollow District Attorney. I am the victim, but I am also the whistleblower. Attached is the evidence. It was professional suicide. By admitting I was involved, even as a victim, I was admitting that my personal life had compromised the firm's security. They would likely fire me for judgment issues, or just to clean the slate. But if I sent it, Vaughn couldn't hide in the corporate shadows anymore. I was shining a light into the basement. I looked at the slashed tire. You are a mistake, Lydia. No, I whispered. I am the correction. I hit send. The message whooshed away. I got into Dad's truck. The cab smelled of old coffee and sawdust, a smell that used to comfort me, but now just smelled like gullibility. Let's go, I said. As we drove away, I watched the community center fade in the rearview mirror. The lights were still on, but the party was over. The wreckage was just beginning. The fallout did not happen all at once like an explosion. It happened in slow, grinding waves, like a glacier carving through rock. In the week following the disaster at the Pine Hollow Community Center, the silence of the mountains was replaced by the rustle of legal paper. The county district attorney opened a formal case file. People versus Mercer Path Capital. It was a sterile name for a mess that had nearly swallowed my family whole. Eli Granger was the first to break. I was sitting in Mara Klein's office when the call came in. Eli's lawyer, a court-appointed public defender because Eli claimed indigence, was on the line. He says he was just hired for labor, Mara told me, her hand over the receiver. He claims he had no knowledge of the financial scheme and was just following orders from the project manager, which he identifies as Tessa. I laughed, a dry, humorless sound. He has a lien on my house where he calls himself a contracting partner. He has emails where he discusses asset velocity with Von Mercer. He is lying. We know he is lying, Mara said. But he is scared. He is scrambling to distance himself because he knows Vaughn is gone. Vaughn left the state 2 hours after the seminar. We tracked his phone to the airport. He is in the wind. Eli did not get off the hook. When Mara faxed over the fake permit application with the Park Hill County prefix, Eli withdrew his lien within 10 minutes. He agreed to a voluntary surrender of his contractor's license to avoid immediate prosecution for fraud. He was finished in Pine Hollow. But removing Eli was only the first layer of the rot. I filed for a civil restraining order against Tessa Watson and Von Mercer. It felt like amputation. Sitting in the courtroom, listing the reasons to a judge: trespass, property damage, wire fraud, intimidation, felt like I was reading a eulogy for my childhood. "Your Honor," I said, standing alone because Dad refused to come. "My sister forged my signature. She sold my home without my consent, and when I exposed the scheme, my tires were slashed. I do not feel safe." The judge granted a temporary protective order. Tessa was barred from coming within 500 yards of the cabin or me. It was a piece of paper, but it was a wall. With the legal wall in place, I turned to the physical one. Ross Calder came back to the cabin. He brought a crew of legitimate tradesmen, guys who didn't talk about leverage, but talked about load calculations and shear strength. "We have to rip the floor up," Ross said, standing in the kitchen. "To get to that gas line, it is going to be messy." "Do it," I said. I watched them tear out the last of Tessa's improvements. The trendy Waterfall Island prep, the dangerous wiring, the cheap drywall. When it was stripped back to the studs, the house finally breathed again. I ordered a new kitchen. I didn't choose the high-gloss European cabinets Tessa had wanted. I didn't order a smart fridge or a wine cooler. I went to the local lumber yard and ordered solid oak shaker cabinets. Simple, durable. I ordered a basic white tile backsplash and a butcher block counter that would scratch and age and look like it belonged in a cabin, not a showroom. "It is not very wow factor," the salesperson warned me. "Good," I said. "I don't want wow. I want solid. I want things that are exactly what they say they are." It was a reclamation of values. I was rebuilding my home on my terms, with money I actually had, for a life I actually intended to live. Ray Watson arrived on a Tuesday afternoon. I saw his truck coming up the driveway and felt the familiar tightening in my chest. He walked up the steps slowly. He looked 10 years older than he had last week. The swagger was gone. The certainty that he was a partner in a wealth fund had evaporated, leaving behind a confused old man who had almost lost his house. I met him on the deck. I didn't invite him in. The sawdust was still thick in the air. "Lydia," he said. He took off his hat and turned it in his hands. "Dad, I wanted to talk to you about the legal thing," he said. He reached into his jacket pocket and pulled out a checkbook. "I know Tessa made a mess. I know she cost you money. I want to help." He opened the checkbook. His hands were shaking. "I can write you a check for $5,000, he said. "It is from my savings. I know it is not everything, but if you take it, maybe you can drop the restraining order. Maybe you can tell the DA it was just a misunderstanding." I looked at the checkbook. It was the same checkbook he had used to bail Tessa out of her credit card debt 3 years ago, the same one he used to pay for her acting classes that turned out to be a pyramid scheme. "Put it away, Dad," I said. "Lydia, please," he said, his voice cracking. "She is your sister. She is staying in her old room at my place. She is terrified. She says she can't sleep. If she gets a criminal record, her life is over. Can't we just handle this as a family? We have always handled things ourselves. That is the problem," I said. "We handle it by burying it. We pay the fine, we hide the debt, and we pretend she is just spirited. And because we do that, she met a man like Von Mercer, and he almost took your house. Dad, if I hadn't stopped it, you would be signing over your equity right now." He flinched. "I know. I know I was misled, but punishing her won't fix the house. I am not punishing her, I said. I am letting consequences happen. For the first time in her life. You are so hard, he whispered. Your mother wouldn't want this. Mom left me a note, I said. She told me to give Tessa choices, not cash. She knew, Dad. She knew this day was coming. He looked at me, stunned. He didn't ask to see the note. He knew it was true. I am not dropping the case, I said, and I am not taking your money. You need that money, Dad, because Tessa is going to need a lawyer, and I am not paying for that either. He stood there for a long time, looking at the gray wood of the deck. Then he put his hat back on. You have the cabin, he said softly, but you are losing us. I never had you, I said. I only had the version of you that Tessa allowed me to have. He walked back to his truck. He didn't look back. Tessa was in limbo. She was living in Dad's basement, officially complying with the investigation but dragging her feet every inch of the way. She provided Lionel Hart with a list of names, other attendees of the seminars, but she claimed she lost her phone that contained the direct text messages with Vaughn. I knew she hadn't lost it. She had buried it or destroyed it. She was terrified. She was convinced that Vaughn had eyes everywhere. Every time a car drove past Dad's house slowly, she had a panic attack. She wasn't evil. I knew that. I sat on my new floor in the evenings, sanding the cabinets by hand, thinking about her. She was addicted. She was addicted to the dopamine hit of the big win. She was addicted to the idea that she was special, that the rules of gravity and finance didn't apply to her because she had vision. Vaughn Mercer was a predator, but Tessa was the one who had unlocked the gate. The professional blow came on a Thursday. I was at the cabin, supervising the installation of the gas line, legitimate black iron pipe this time, buried at the correct depth, when my phone pinged. Subject: Employment status update. Confidential. From Human Resources, Westbridge Analytics. I sat down on a stack of lumber to read it. Dear Ms. Watson, regarding your self-report of vendor fraud and conflict of interest dated October 30th, Westbridge Analytics has initiated a formal third-party review. Due to the sensitive nature of your position as senior analyst and the direct involvement of your personal family members in the vendor scheme, we are placing you on administrative leave, effective immediately, pending the outcome of the investigation. Your access to company systems has been suspended. Please do not contact any colleagues or clients. I lowered the phone. I had saved them. I had identified the mole. Sienna Park. I had flagged the fraudulent invoices. I had done everything the code of ethics required. And they were sidelining me. It felt unfair. It felt like a punch to the gut. I had worked there for 5 years. I had given them my weekends, my sanity, my loyalty. But as I looked around the quiet woods, I realized something. They were protecting the asset. Westbridge was doing exactly what I was doing with the cabin. They were cutting out the rot, isolating the risk, and securing the perimeter. To them, I wasn't the hero. I was the point of entry. I was the chaotic variable. I put the phone down. I didn't cry. I felt a strange, light-headed sense of freedom. I had spent my life trying to be the good one, the reliable employee, the stable daughter, and it hadn't saved me from any of this. Ms. Watson, Ross Calder, was standing over me. We are ready to pressure test the line. You want to watch? Yeah, I said, standing up and brushing the dust off my jeans. I want to watch the gauge hold steady. The final confrontation happened at twilight. The sun had dipped behind the ridge, turning the sky a deep, bruised purple. The air was cold, smelling of coming snow. I was inside the cabin, painting the trim around the front door. A car pulled up. It wasn't Dad's truck. It was a small sedan. A rental. I put down the brush. I wiped my hands. I walked to the door and locked it. I engaged the heavy security chain I had installed 2 days ago. A knock. Frantic. Rapid. Lydia? Lydia, are you in there? It was Tessa. I opened the door 3 inches. until the chain pulled taut. She was standing on the porch. She looked like a ghost. She was wearing a hoodie pulled up over her head, and her eyes were darting around the woods behind her. "Tessa," I said, "you are violating the restraining order. You are not supposed to be here." I know, she whispered, leaning close to the crack in the door. "Please, Lyd, open the door. Just for 10 minutes. I need to talk to you. I can't talk over the phone." "He listens. I know he listens." "Who listens?" "Vaughn," she said. "He sent me a message, through a burner app. He wants me to recant. He says if I tell the police I made it all up, he will forgive the debt. He will give me the money to pay you back." "Tessa," I said, gripping the doorframe. "There is no money. How many times do I have to tell you? He is buying your silence with monopoly money." "You don't know that," she hissed. "He still has the fund. Lydia, please, I am scared. I need to come in. I need you to help me figure out what to say to him." "No," I said. She stopped. She looked at me through the gap in the door. "What?" "I am not letting you in," I said. "I am not helping you write a script to talk to a con man. You need to call Lionel Hart. You need to show him the message." "I can't tell the police," she cried. "If I tell them, Vaughn will release the video." "What video?" "The video of me," she sobbed. "From the seminar, where I say I am the partner, where I say I authorize the sales. He recorded everything. Lydia, he has proof I was in on it. If he releases it, I go to prison." "You might go to prison anyway, Tessa," I said. "But if you help him now, you definitely will." She slammed her hand against the door. "Why do you have to be so righteous? Why can't you just help me? I am your sister." "I am helping you," I said, my voice shaking. "I am keeping the door shut. That is the help." 2 days later, the news broke. It wasn't just Pine Hollow. Lionel Hart called me. "State police are taking over," he said. "We found victims in 3 other counties. Same Mono. A wealth coach targets families with equity, gets a younger relative to sign a fraudulent consulting agreement, and then drains the accounts. Vaughn Mercer isn't his real name. He is a ghost." "Did you catch him?" I asked. "Not yet," Lionel said. "But we found his servers. The data you sent? The Westbridge files? It linked him to a shell company in Nevada. We are freezing the assets. We might be able to recover some of Celeste's money. Yours is likely gone. Lydia, I am sorry." "I know," I said. "And Tessa?" I asked. "She is a person of interest," Lionel said. "We haven't charged her yet. We are hoping she flips. But she has gone quiet. Ray says she hasn't left her room in 48 hours. I hung up. I was at the cabin alone. It was night. The wind was howling around the eaves. The sound of winter arriving in force. The kitchen was finished. The cabinets were installed. The floor was solid. The gas line was safe. I had won the battle. I had reclaimed my territory. But the war wasn't over. I made a cup of tea in my new kitchen. The silence was absolute. No construction noise. No Tessa laughing on the phone. Just the hum of the refrigerator and the wind. My phone buzzed on the counter. New voicemail. I frowned. The phone hadn't rung. I picked it up. The notification said the message was left 2 minutes ago. I pressed play. "Lydia?" It was Tessa. Her voice was wet, thick with tears. She was whispering. "Lydia, I am sorry. I am so sorry. You were right. He contacted me again. He wants me to meet him. He says he has the hard drive, the one with the videos." A pause. I heard wind in the background of the recording. "I am going to end it. Lyd, I am going to get the drive, and I am going to bring it to you. Then we can go to the police together. I just need you to know I am trying to fix it." Another pause, a jagged intake of breath. "I am meeting him at the turnout. You know the one? By the old mile marker. If I am not back in an hour, tell Dad I love him." The message ended. My blood ran cold. The turnout. That was miles away. Up the canyon. It was isolated. Dark. I looked at the timestamp. 2 minutes ago. I grabbed my keys. I grabbed my coat. I ran to the front door. I threw it open. Ready to sprint to my car, I stopped. At the bottom of my driveway, blocking the exit, was a truck. It wasn't Dad's truck. It wasn't a contractor's truck. It was a dark, lifted pickup with no lights on. It was idling. The exhaust puffed white clouds into the freezing air. I couldn't see the driver. The windows were tinted black. It just sat there, watching. My phone was still in my hand. Tessa's voicemail ended, and the silence of the woods rushed back in, heavy and suffocating. I stepped back inside. I locked the door. I locked the chain. I looked at the phone. I looked at the dark shape of the truck through the window. The story wasn't over. Thank you for listening to this story. This was a tale about boundaries, betrayal, and the heavy cost of reclaiming what is yours. I would love to hear from you. Please comment below and tell me where you are listening from. I am always fascinated to see how far these stories travel. If you enjoyed this and want to hear more about Lydia's fight, please subscribe to Revenge Stories. And I want to ask you, did Lydia make the right choice by closing the door on her sister? Or should she have let her in? Share your thoughts in English in the comments. I read every single one.